Greetings, everyone. This is Jonathan Weedman with Community Conversations presented by Outlook Newspapers. Thank you so much for listening. I've started these podcasts because, as some of you may know, I worked in the foundation world for over 20 years, which was the greatest job I ever had in my life because I got to work with the good guys, men and women and individuals who've chosen with their lives to improve the human condition. So I thought how fun it would be, how great it would be to have conversations with those folks, people on the nonprofit side, the foundation side, elected leadership side. And so I've begun these podcasts. And I'm so proud and so thrilled to be associated with Outlook Newspapers, my partner in this wonderful venture. Today, we have a very special guest, my first guest, a dear friend, someone whom you know, I'm sure, a great actor, a great performer, a great entertainer, but also a great humanitarian, William Shatner. I've known Bill now for over 20 years, and he has done so much for nonprofit organizations and our community. And a lot of folks don't know. We had a wonderful conversation today, and I hope you will enjoy it. He's an amazing guy, and it's really a great listen. So thanks so much, and enjoy the community conversation. We are ready to go. So, Bill, first of all, it is so great to see you after over a year. And I want to thank you so much for joining us today on this Community Conversations podcast. Um,
Well, it's my pleasure. It's a great thing that you're doing too, Jonathan.
well, thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm excited about it. You know, we're going to be reaching out to nonprofit leaders, foundation leaders, people within the sector. And we certainly want them to share information, but also to learn about best practices. And I think it's wonderful for them to learn about the work you're doing at the Horse Show and to hear your thoughts about philanthropy and community. You know, Bill, everyone knows you for your work in films, in theater, television. But what a lot of people don't know is that you are an expert horseman. I didn't know about it until you called me 20 years ago and asked us to sponsor the Horse Show. And I've never asked you this question. When did you fall in love with horses? Was it as a young man? Was it as a boy? How did that start?
Well, it's a kind of circuitous uh, story. I was growing up in Montreal, and my family my father had bought a house on the outskirts of Montreal, so much so that there was pasture land like a block or two away. And on that pasture land was a barn. And in that barn were horses. And on those horses were saddles. And and somewhere along the line, I don't quite remember how, I got on a horse. I'd never been on a horse before. I
Wow.
was galloping around. I'd never been on the back of a horse and never galloped. And when my parents saw me, they were aghast. Where did you learn to do that? I don't know. And I love to think of it this way, that we know that some behavior, whether it's very affected behavior or behavior that's way in your background and hardly ever emerges, but there's a certain amount of DNA behavior in our makeup that, because what our ancestors did, not just generally in humanity, but what our particular ancestors did in the past, may have affected our DNA today, so that we might have a proclivity towards music. I mean, think of all the people who went into music, whose parents had gone to music. Now, was Mozart in utero when he went to the symphony, and his mother was sitting around while his father conducted, and that he, at the age of 4, when he was born, at the age of 4, he knew music, and this rumor of him writing a symphony at that age, who knows? But I like to think of it as it's in my DNA. Horses and dogs are in my DNA.
I I I I mean, caring for them and understanding horses. I remember riding the stagecoach with you in a parade, and you told me later on how you observed how the horses were actually communicating with one another, how they were pacing with one another. And I thought that was so interesting that you understood that, but that you picked up on it.
Well, they were
Um,
talking in the parade. We were in a wagon, and the wagon was being dragged by a couple of horses. And on those interminable pauses that those parades are in, the horses started talking to each other. What do you think of this? Well, I don't know. What's that guy over there doing? I don't know. Look at that. Should we be afraid? No, we don't need to be afraid. And it was all going through their ears and eyes,
n-
and they do that all the time. And that's one of the fascinations of horses and dogs, of course.
Indeed. Well, how often do you ride? Because I know you ride pretty regularly and
Well,
compete.
yes, just this past week, competed on a very high level. Um, I was at a place that I was with a trainer who had become a friend of mine for many, many years. And then I discovered that he was on to no good for 30 years. He was supposed to be my friend and a really close friend. And it turned out he wasn't up and up. And I hesitate to say more, if you know what I mean.
Oh, we've all had those, may I say.
Right, right. So it staggers you that people can be like that, but we know that a lot of people, along with the DNA of horses, that's good. There's bad
That's
DNA
right.
too.
There
So
sure
who knows
is.
where all that came from? But it was a shock, and a shock to my point that I've been with people for 40, 50 years. And I thought, gee, should I audit them? If that guy is capable of doing this, what about these long-term runners? So you don't know. Um, but I found myself one of the great trainers in the country today. His name is
Hmm.
Tom Ferran. And Tom has taken all my horses, and Liz and I are with Tom Ferran and his wife Daphne, who's another excellent trainer. And during the pandemic, I've gone pretty much every morning. I've tried to make it so that I work during the afternoon and evenings, like doing this interview
Yeah.
with you. I should have gone riding this morning for a couple of hours, but we had competed to a high degree. We did a lot of winning this past week at a horse show, at a reining horse show. So the horses had this time off. They were just, they just moseyed around. They were left to relax. So I didn't want to bother them with my weight on their back.
by good fortune.
Right. So I didn't ride today, but what I did do today was ferret out great pillows for the front of the house, which has been waiting 2 or 3 years to be done. So I
Uh-huh.
took a moment when I should have been riding, and I went and did something for the house.
Awesome. You know, what writing every day, there has to be parts that are certainly enjoyable, and there have to be tough parts about writing. It's a very physical sport.
It's a
It's a very
very
demanding
physical
sport.
sport. It's not a ride. We're not talking about riding in the park. Oh, look at that tree. Look at that flower. We're talking about racing down the length of the enclosure and sliding to a stop and doing a 180-degree turn, a roll back and doing and turns. It's very, very physical. And some of these horses get excited and the one of the big things that the training has to do is to modulate that excitement. He said, oh, we want to run, we're going to run. Oh, we ran yesterday, let's run again today. No, today is different from yesterday. Come back, come back, come back. And so it's a very physical morning.
Well, I mean, I it's extraordinary because people who love horses, it is in their DNA. My cousin April gets up every morning at 6 a.m. and mucks the stall and cleans out their hooves, and she wouldn't have it any other way. She loves it because we're on the phone while she's doing this.
Oh,
And,
really?
and
That's
yeah,
funny.
she calls me in the morning. She's down with her horses, and you've met her. We were at the concert a few years ago, and she had a question she wanted me to ask you. She said, "Ask Bill what is or was his heart horse. He'll know what I'm talking about." In other words, did you or do you have a favorite horse that was particularly special to you?
There was I loved all those horses, like asking about your children, you
Yeah.
know. But if a parent, George, just tell me who's your favorite kid. No, no, no. I won't say anything, George. And George says, "Well, I'll tell you. It was, you know." And they'll tell you the child that's the easiest to bring up and offers the less problems and is doing so well and has the most promise. That could be, you know, she was less a problem growing up than the second, third, and fourth one. So horses are like that. If the some horses have within their DNA a a peaceful spirit that they say, okay, what would you like me to do? Oh, that. Okay, I can do that. And I'll do it again. And then what oh, that there, I'll do. And suddenly there's a difference in intelligence in horses, the same way there is in people.
Wow.
So you could get a horse and train them the same way, and one horse is really great at it, and the other's, yeah, okay, and goes and dawdles along. So you're naturally inclined to the better horse. So there have been some really special horses that won world championships. And
Wow.
there was a horse called Great Day that is not the breed, the quarter horse breed, but saddlebred breed. Was so he's dead now. And I wrote a song about him and a new album I'm putting out called
Mm.
What Have I Done? Because I made him into a stud. He was a big 2, 3 year old. He won his 2 year old world championship, 3 year old world championship. And then he was to be retired. So when's
Mm.
he going to retire? So let's make him a stud horse. Well, a stud horse fertilizes lots of mares, and many of his progeny have done so well. But in the meantime, you have to incarcerate the stud because they become aggressive and
Yeah.
they become territorial. And some of them, like Great Day, will eat you up.
Mm.
So you gotta put them in behind bars, and you got to be careful how you take them out. And then after a while, everything excites them. A passing horse, so you got to stop, and he'll kick. So you got to put chains on it. Then you got to put because he starts to savage himself. You got to put poles on him. You got and then finally, when Great Day died, I said out loud, "What have I done?" And that's the name of the song in this new album
Oh.
called "What Have I Done?" Because I took this glorious horse
Mm.
and I put him in solitary confinement.
Uh, it it's a I'm sure a wonderful tribute to this horse.
I hope so.
To remember him, indeed.
I hope
Well,
so. I will. You know, it's the album is with um, uh, the great label. The Jonas
Capital.
Brothers is label. What?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was
No,
going to say.
Capital. No, where the park is here, just the black buildings. What's the
Oh,
name
Warner
of the?
Brothers.
No, no, not Warner's.
Um,
Oh, anyway, with the top label, I'll
mm,
think of Century City, not Century City. Uh, uh,
I know they build so fast.
where all the studios are near me, where all the
Yeah,
studios are.
Disney, Warner Brothers, KBC. I'm trying to think.
Come
Well,
on,
I
keep
I
going.
know just down the hill from you. There's the whole area is full of studios.
Anyway, that label, with the top label in the world, has taken my album, is what I'm trying to get at. The Jonas Brothers loved the material, took it to their label, which is this label, and they signed us for
Wow.
this album and an option on the second.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome.
It's really awesome. Well, we met Bill uh, when your assistant called me, and
Universal, Universal.
yeah, I was just thinking Universal because that is just down the hill. We met when your assistant called me and said, would you like to accept a call from William Shatner?" And I said, "Who is this?" And then you came on the phone, and
I'll tell you who this is, Jonathan Weedman.
we began a friendship and association that's over 20 years now.
I've,
And
I've treasured it.
no, me too. And you are a family to us, as is Elizabeth. And you took your passion of horses and you said, I'm going to do something really good with this. I'm going to do something special with this. And you took your passion, this incredible avocation, and created the Hollywood Charity Horse Show. And how did you conceive that idea? Did that
It's a
just come to you?
beautiful,
Did somebody bring
no,
you
no,
the
it's
idea?
a beautiful story, and it doesn't have, unfortunately, it doesn't have a high-minded, like, I'm going to create something with this. No, so I'm in a horse show over at the um, Equestrian Center, which is a world-class equestrian center here in Los Angeles. It's actually in Burbank, but they call it the Los Angeles Equestrian Center.
Right.
So it's one of the finest in the country. And I was at a horse show, and there were a group of women, I think 3 or 4 women, who were running the horse show, and it was a charity horse show. They were benefiting a hospital downtown. And so I'm at the horse show, and I meet the women. And the women say, we're all tired about it. We're not gonna do the horse show anymore. I said, well, wait a minute. We don't want to lose a horse show. And I thought, how difficult could it be to do a horse show? Right? So I said, okay, well, I'll take it over. I'll take it over. So they said, okay. And I didn't know what to do that day. But that day, the way the universe has taken care of me, Jonathan, like meeting you, that day that I said, I'll take it over, and I thought, now what do I do? This charity group that uses horse therapy, equine therapy, hippotherapy, was part of the beneficiary of these women who were running this charity,
Mhm.
and and they brought one of their kids that they were benefiting, and I'm looking at a child about 6 years old. This is now 35 years ago. 6 years old, sitting on a horse. She's a thalidomide baby. Have I
Yes.
ever told you this story?
No.
A thalidomide baby. How do I know she's thalidomide? She has no arms. She has one leg.
Mm.
She's holding the reins in her toes.
Wow.
And she's beautiful. Her face, she was this beautiful spirit girl. She's now 40 years old, somewhere in the world.
Mhm.
But and she's obviously you, when you see her or meet her, you would not forget who she was.
Yeah.
But she was so adept with that one leg and those toes. And I, at that time, had my 3 kids. And there's a difference in Canada, and I'm sure in the United States. In Canada, where I grew up, they would walk Tiny Tim across the television screen. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I don't know whether you're old enough to remember the paralysis disease, the
Polio.
polio. I don't
Sure.
know what you remember. Do you recall polio?
I remember polio. I remember, knowing people who'd been struck by it, who were recovering by it. It was the scourge of the 1940s and
It was
50s.
the scourge of the world and
Terrified people.
terrified. And so in early television, they would run these March of Dimes campaigns to raise money
Hmm.
for kids who had had polio. And they had a poster child called Tiny Tim. And Tiny Tim would walk across these primitive television screens. Hi, I'm Tiny Tim. And he'd limp across and go,
Yeah.
and benefit Tiny Tim's, give to Tiny Tim. When you have a child, your heart goes, oh, poor Tiny Tim, I'll give some money. But when you have a child and Tiny Tim walks across the screen, you go, oh my God,
Yeah.
my child, and you suddenly get involved. I had 3 children. Here was this young 6-year-old kid with reins. When I talk about it now, tears come to my eyes, and I get goosebumps because this child was smiling, and there was nothing wrong with her as far as she was concerned. She had those reins in her toes, and she was moving on.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's what I want to benefit. And that became the Hollywood Charity Horse Show.
It, I can tell you, Bill, that some of my most moving memories are of the event, when the children come and actually ride and appear in the rink. There was one young boy who was paralyzed, that I remember seeing, a beautiful young boy. And when he got up on that horse, his entire being changed. He lit up, he
Absolutely.
smiled, and it is powerful, moving, and compelling. And I think really reminds you about what's important in the world. You
Well, it
know,
does, Jonathan. And as a result of that, I think almost 35 years of running, of me and my assistant running the horse show. Nobody else is doing. It's not like there's a whole hierarchy here.
Oh, I know.
It's
I wish you'd
me,
talk about that because I
and
think
in the last
everybody.
10 years, Kathleen Hayes has been my assistant, and she's been phenomenal about the mechanics of it. And I go out and raise funds and talk to charities, but it's the two of us putting on the horse show. Now, that brings me to mind of something that I know that you were so aware of, that when I began to raise money, I was raising $500,000 a year,
Yeah,
but for 35 years, so that's millions of dollars.
that's right.
And it was like a drop. You go to these great charitable events that you put on, and guys, I'll give $1 million. Oh, I'll give to, and in that event, they're raising millions of dollars. My event, excuse the expression, is a shit kicking event. Only shit kickers go with their jeans on, and we get Western entertainment, and please help us, and we get these heartfelt but small donations.
Yeah.
So, so over the years, because I've pursued and kept going, like everything else I do. I was a long distance runner. I was terrible in the dash, but just keep going, and somehow you get there.
You bet.
35 years later, all these millions of dollars that go to help children's charities, and one other that I know that you and I just love, and that is, I was married to a most beautiful, loving, glorious woman whose first name was Noreen, and I married her, and she was Noreen Shatner, and she was an alcoholic, and I thought, people say, friends of mine, an alcoholic, but I thought, I've met horses and dogs that I have loved, and that love permeated them, and this bad dog would become good, and this recalcitrant horse was more amenable because of the love. Of course, Noreen, I would love Noreen into purity,
Yeah.
but it didn't work out that way. Noreen died in a swimming pool accident here at my house,
Yes.
and those of us like you mourned her, and as a result, I'm going to tell you something really haven't told many people. The one of the magazines, the tabloid magazines, got a hold of me and said, "We're going to publish a not a very nice story about you and Noreen, unless you give us an exclusive story of what happened." So I said, "Okay," and we negotiated a fee, and they paid me that fee. I gave them an exclusive account, and I took that money along with one other friend of hers who gave me an equal amount of money. It was $250,000.
Yeah.
With $500,000, we bought a home
Yes.
in just below Beverly Hills. We gave that home for $1 a year to the
The Friendly House.
Friendly House.
Yeah.
We gave it a Friendly House. And what's her name who died now?
Peggy Albright.
Peggy Albright.
She
Accepted.
was an extraordinary woman.
Extraordinary woman. And Peggy Albright and the Noreen Shatner Foundation we bought a house just below Beverly Hills. 11 women in the last 20 years. 11 women each for a period of time. So there's been a
They
turnover,
rotate through, sure.
a rotating 11 women at a time. So that means, in 20 years, more than 100 women have passed through. And now what the charity is doing outside of children and veterans, this one charity, we've put, I don't know whether you know this, we've put addictive women together with a head with not with a head with horses, but with another horse therapy. And
Yeah.
they've had miraculous success with women who are addicted getting on a horse and feeling so good about themselves that it has helped in their sobriety.
It is the most compelling work, and I don't. I may have told you this, but I had someone very close to me who was dealing with alcoholism, and Peggy actually came to my home one day and was there to help me and guide me and to try and get this person help. She was a remarkable woman, and I know that people who suffer from alcoholism. You can't save everyone, but you can
And that was
certainly.
the story of Noreen and Peggy.
Oh,
Peggy
I
cried
know, and
for
I
years.
remember you telling me that story with tears in your eyes, and I learned one thing, that for people who suffer from alcoholism, some you just can't help, and it was some of the hardest I've ever dealt with in my life.
Here's what I learned, and I assume you learned the same thing. I said to her numerous times, just say no. I love you. You're here. You're safe. Just don't drink. And she said, okay, I'm going to do that. And of course, moments later, she would be drinking. Um, Gee, I had something in mind
Well,
with
well,
Peggy.
we've all
Oh
dealt with
no.
it.
So when she died, I felt such pain,
Oh, I know.
and I thought, of course, that's the pain addiction brings on you. You come out of the addiction and you feel this emptiness, pain, and there's nothing can assuage it. Only alcohol in their case, only time in our case. So I felt an identification with Noreen when she died. One of the things that taught me was the pain that she must have felt every day.
Yeah,
Only alcohol could take away.
insurmountable.
Incredible.
It is. We live a long time and we go through a lot of stuff. I lost a dear friend to the disease a year ago. One of my best friends, and
How did
I've
how
learned
did
that I've
how did he die?
he it was alcohol and drugs, and actually I hate to get too personal about it, but the very I spoke with him that afternoon, and the last text that he had with me at about 10 o'clock that night is the last documented time that he was living. He was found the next morning, and you would
What did he
remember,
say?
but you'd met him. He'd come to the horse
What did
show.
he say? What was the last text?
We were making plans to get together, and he said, "I'll talk to you tomorrow." I mean, it was. I woke up in the morning and I called him and there was no answer. And then late in the afternoon, I received a call from a friend who said that his housekeeper had come to clean and his bedroom door was closed. And she finally got ready to leave and she opened the door and he'd passed away in his sleep. And what I,
How
uh,
fortunate.
it was all, yes, he died peacefully. And candidly, just to become even more detailed, a dear friend of mine who is in the coroner's office, Bill, and he reported to me that all evidence was there was no struggle, it was painless, and that it was a peaceful death, but his body just gave out. And I've learned that you never get over it, but you do get through it.
No, you
And
never get over it, but you learn to live with it.
you learn
And
to live with it. And what's
it's
happening
always
now is
there.
happy memories are replacing, the pain
That's
of
what
the
happens
loss.
as you go through grief, those stages of grief, you end up with resignation and acceptance.
Yeah. And I
And
mean, it's part of life. And the work that you've done, when I think about the amount of money that you've raised, Bill, I mean, it's millions of dollars. And not just that, but the profile that you've given these organizations through your public profile and celebrity, and talking about them in probably to hundreds of millions of people, Bill.
well, I have
Would
given interviews because I'm in this unique situation. I've been able to give Priceline and the Bank of California. Let me just make sure I got that list so I don't forget anybody. Um, did I leave you? You still see me?
I can see you? Yeah,
Okay, wait a minute. Um, Hold on a second. Um, Priceline and the Bank of California and Westar Associates and the Capital Equity Group are all giving us money, donations. We're partnering with a virtual Comic Con called GalaxyCon to create a virtual event the last weekend of September. So
uh-huh.
there'll also be an online auction, and we have 16 recipient charities who benefit from our fundraising
I love
uh,
it.
efforts, and the organizations are primarily to benefit children and um, and veterans. I
Well,
just want to correct
I
that.
it's extraordinary, Bill, and I know we all had to take a year off this year because of COVID, but we're so excited to be coming back next year. And we need to make it the biggest, best horse show that we've ever had. And one of the things that I'm doing with this podcast, Bill, is talking to funders and talking to philanthropists and talking to people who are donating, because we all need to find a way to stay connected so that we can all help each other in our work. And I always felt so strongly about what you've done. Just I always want to quickly touch upon something for our listeners. You don't have some big giant operation with 25 people,
That's what I
and
wanted to talk to you
you know
about.
I have come into your office for a meeting, and you're on the phone. This blew me out of the water. Every year, you personally call every single person who buys a sponsorship or a ticket to your event. It's extraordinary.
Here is the peak of this being motivated like that. There was a charity here in town we were benefiting, really top charity. Were I to mention it, you would say, "Well, we do that too. We give money to that too." But I found out that the head of the charity was getting an extraordinary amount of money. Now, the argument is you want to hire somebody who's really good at raising money and pay them well so they can raise gazillion
Right.
dollars. But I thought there's a point when you're paying them more than is just doesn't taste right.
Yeah.
Now it may be right in
In
the
the
world of
corporate world, I
finance that
think.
I don't know about, but to hear that sum of money, I said we're not going to give any more money to that charity. So we seek out charities that have minimal the percentages that I've forgotten now, like 20% of what they raise they can use to for infrastructure, but
Yeah.
or 30%, whatever the percentages that is normal and natural and easy. But after a certain point, and I don't remember what that percentage is. So we examine our charities very closely as to what their expenses are
Yeah.
and what we give them, what they gather in. Now, one of the exceptions is we benefit the Police Action League,
The police activities league. That's
the big one, the
Hollenbeck.
Hollenbeck.
Yeah.
So we benefit Hollenbeck, which is one of the toughest.
Oh yeah.
And they have a high rate of which they spend their money. Their money is spent on people, policemen, advisors, to teach. They're actually teaching the kids whatever it is they teach them. The civil work and civility. I mean,
Citizenship and community, all that
exactly
good stuff.
all the
It's
things
a
the
wonderful group.
glorious police action leagues that are doing. Policemen are absolutely contributing their time and energy and money to helping kids. I mean, I don't think enough is made of that when we hear the police being put down. But that's what I did. I had Kathleen and I looked over. We still continue look over every charity, examine where the money goes, how it's being spent, who's being paid what.
So Bill, I guess I could ask you 1,000 questions, and I think first I want to thank you for being so generous with your time and
Not at all. It's so
sharing all this
important.
with me.
I want you to ask me about people who give. People who give. Why should people give?
Yeah, you
What?
spoke about that once at a meeting that I attended where you addressed everybody, and you shared. I think this would be a wonderful note to finish on, because I know Kathleen's giving me some signals. And by the way, I do want to give a shout out to Kathleen Hayes, because she is remarkable in all the work she's
Remarkable
done.
woman.
She was such
A
a great friend to
remarkable
me.
woman in
And,
so many ways.
yeah, and I love her so much. But talk about that, because I think community involvement, engagement, giving is important, and
There
everyone
are
should.
people in this world who have taken from life and done well in life. I'm not talking about people who are down and out and struggling. There are people who've done very well. Life is difficult. Life. I talked to a guy who ran a old age home and helped the elderly, and a place where you go to die,
Hospice.
a hospice.
Yeah.
He ran both. So,
Jeez.
but he was a friendly, generous man. and he was talking about somebody dying in hospice, and I said, well, I because I'm my age and I think about dying a lot. My album has a few songs about what's on the other side there, and I said, well, the way if you hurt yourself, like not too long ago, a horse spun me off and I broke my leg, and the pain was intense, but I could stand it because my body had gone into shock.
Hmm.
So I said, I'll bet you people, I didn't say I bet you, I said, I imagine that people who are dying, like your friend in bed, they go into shock. And so that, because everybody dies, so
Yeah.
the body must be accustomed to soothing the way. And he said, no, it's very painful to die. Exactly. I close my eyes. So we try to extract from life as much as we can, but it behooves us. It's absolutely important. It's a rule. You got to give something back.
You bet.
It's not necessarily money. It's your time. It's your be a volunteer. Give something from your life back. You're alive, and we're here, in my opinion, to observe the awe and wonder of the universe. Trees, trees communicate. Do you understand that trees send low-level electrical impulses to each other?
Yes.
That's a miracle. We are here to observe those miracles and glory in them. That's really what life should be.
Thank you for listening, everyone. As you may have heard, we got cut off just as Bill was finishing his sentence because I didn't know that Zoom calls had a 30-minute time limit. So, you learn something new every day. I called Bill right after our visit and thanked him. And he said he'd love to come back on again sometime soon. And so thank you, Bill. Thank you all for listening. Sorry for the little glitch at the end. Um, and I thought it was a wonderful, wonderful conversation. And please tune in. I'm aiming to do one of these every week. And hopefully I'll get to talk to you too. So thanks so much and every good wish. Thanks.